Hello, everyone. It is Teresa from Teresa's Art Spot. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Tonight we are doing the Hello Fall kit. So you have three pieces. You have the base round, the wood cutout with the shapes on it, and then you have, which I need to grab, I don't know where it went, the hanger part. Oh, here it is. The hanger part. This gets glued on the back. So when everything is completely dry and you're ready to do the gluing, this gets glued on the back. I would recommend putting the strings through it first and then gluing it on. Just a note, when you're getting ready to glue it, make sure you put both your pieces together and you know exactly where the top is. Otherwise, you'll put your hanger on somewhere and you'll go like this and you'll be like, ooh, that's not going to work. Okay, so just as a reminder, make sure that you know exactly where the top is before you go and glue your hanger on the back. Okay, so we are going to get started. We don't need this one just yet. We're going to get started with our bottom solid round and the light brown and a little bit of white and the large brush. And I think for you guys, it's either a large fiber brush or it's a foam brush. And I'm going to get out my light brown paint. And then a little bit of white. That's my yellow. And we are using the large brush. In your case, it might be a green handle brush or it might be a foam brush. Okay. I like to, when I do these base coating, keep all my strokes going the same way. And the first thing I'm doing, I'm applying a little bit of pressure to my brush and I'm dipping part in the white and part in the tan. I don't want to be shy about the paint. I put a little bit of pressure on my brush so I get paint all the way up in those fibers. Depending on what's comfortable for you, we're going to paint in one direction. And I'm just going to start painting, whether I'm painting vertically or horizontally. I'm just going to paint this whole entire board. And as you can see, it sucks up a bit of paint. So I have to go back in and keep picking up a little bit of white and a little bit of tan on the corners of my brush as I paint. And I don't want it to be stripy. So as I'm starting a new section, I will then keep my brush going back over parts that I already painted. So I pick up corner of tan, corner of white, I start a new section, and then when I start running out of paint, I go back over an old section. I do not usually paint the edges of these, but that is totally up to you. It really comes down to if your edges get that messy or not. I don't usually worry about it, but that is up to you, like I said. And you can always do that after or in between. I spilled a little paint. And this is basically all I'm doing. We're not being shy. You want to keep your sides from getting the least messy. When I paint to the sides, I pull, or rather I push off the board. Your sides get messy when you come this way because it kind of scrapes the paint off the brush. So if you are pushing towards the edge, it kind of keeps the sides from getting a little too messy. And you can use as little or as a lot of the tan as you want, or I mean, as the white as you want in your tan color, depending on if you want it darker, or lighter, or less variation or more variation. I like it to look a little streaky. But if you overblend and yours looks one color on the background, it's fine because we're going to have so much going on with the cutout in the front, it won't matter. So again, I am pushing to the edge, but I am also keeping all my strokes going in the same direction. And for me, that's vertical. I'm just going to turn mine around now because I will be pushing off to the other side. If you end up getting too much on your sides, I will show you how we can take care of that. It's not going to wipe off. So instead, we just kind of blend it in and we make it look intentional. I need a little bit more tan. So you can see on mine that I have a little bit of variation. My wood grain is showing through a little bit. I'm totally okay with that. It just gives it a little bit more character and dimension. Okay. I'll give you guys a little bit of time to finish that. But when we are finished and it's completely painted, we're going to put this aside. Whether you move it next to you, put it on the counter, put it on a different table, put it on the floor if you don't have pets that are going to step in it, whatever it is, we are done with this side for now. Ooh, I'm certainly making a ruckus, aren't I? I'm just putting out this extra covering for my table because when we paint this, it gets a little messy with all the holes. Oh, look at this. Somebody, Marion, put in the chat, Lillian. When I collected my kit, I saw just a back on a table near the entrance. So that might be your missing back. Okay. I'll give you guys a few more minutes to finish your background. If you are done, the next color I am getting out is the dark brown. You don't need that large brush anymore. You might just want to put it aside in case you need to touch anything up. Otherwise, we're not going to need it at all, and you can toss it. Well, it's totally up to you. Those brushes are not necessarily meant to be reused, but feel free. It's totally up to you. Depending on what I use them for, I actually do reuse them on occasion. But usually if I'm using those brushes, I have a lot of stuff to base coat. And then by the time I'm done, they're really not reusable. So. We have a few tricky sections that I will show you as we go along. One of which is hard to see is the pumpkin stem up in here. And then these two sections that are like the inside buds or whatever of these two flowers. But when we get to that, I'm just pointing them out for now. I will show you guys again. Okay. If you're done with your round, you can put that aside somewhere, someplace else, or if your work surface for now. And we're going to get out our dark brown. And we're going to base, well, it's really more than a base coat because this is finished, but we're going to paint the entire circle and the lettering that says hello fall. Okay. Where the leaves come in, we're just going to cut them off and paint that brown. So I'm just showing you where everything attaches. I'm going to paint it brown. Well, here it matches, but the leaves it doesn't. But here, this is the leaves are going to be green and the band is going to be brown. And the same thing down here. We're going to leave our brown where everything attaches all around. Okay. So we want to just take our brown and go along the edge of the band. And we're using the smaller brush. And we're just going to start coloring in our band dark brown. And you see, when I do this, I start at one spot, then I kind of work my way up, then I work my way down, spreading the paint. I'll pick up a little bit more paint. I'll get it going. I'll go back over what I did, and then I'll come back down here over the new area. If you are careful and you want to go in and outline where the cuts meet the round part beforehand, so you don't like mistakenly go too far, that is up to you. I like to outline things. I like to keep my eye focused where it needs to be. Now I'm just running my brush, picking up paint along the outer band here of this cutout. Again, I have a leaf coming in here. And we want our brush to move fairly easy over the surface. If your brush is getting hung up, it's too dry. You want to put a little bit more paint in it. Again, I'm working, the frame is totally brown and the leaves are just going to butt up to it. I like how, again, the wood grain shows through a little bit. As we work our way around. Okay. The letters are a little bit more tricky, but they're the same. And I would keep, when I do the letters, do my strokes in one direction again. So all my lettering strokes, I'm going to be either pushing my brush up or pulling it down a little bit. I don't worry about doing the edges because the edges are pretty dark anyway from the laser cutter. And because we're doing our letters in the dark brown, it's okay. It doesn't make that much contrast. If we were doing our letters white, we might want to go back in and do the edges in white. But because they're all like dark brown anyway from the cutter, I think it's totally fine to leave them the dark brown. I think your guys' brushes are almost the exact same size as the frame around to begin with too. And down here, I want my letter to be what's out in front. So I made a little curve where my letter touches these leaves down here. And so you can still see that it's an F, and we will paint the leaf to come up and meet that. Again, with this, I don't think we need to paint the edge. I like that it's dark and we painted the frame dark. Okay, I'll give you guys a few more minutes. Sometimes I notice some of the wood soaks up more paint than other sections. So you paint it and you think you got everything, or you thought you got everything, you didn't. And then you go back and it looks like it went and it sucked it up a little bit more. So give you guys about 2 more minutes for that. Okay. Wash your brush out really, really well. We're going to squeeze it dry with our paper towel, and we're going to get our orange. The only thing on here that's orange is the pumpkin. And if it's easier to see from here, the pumpkin are these 6 curved lines. 1, 2, 3. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 6. Okay. So I'm going to put a little bit of paint on my brush. And again, the pumpkin is coming up to meet the flowers. So we're going to try and just make a little bit of a separation there with our paint and our brush. And I'm just going to paint in on top of the pumpkins. If it's easier to hold your brush upright like I'm doing and use it on the chisel edge for these narrower spots, go right ahead. I will stand it up and use it on the skinny part instead of on the flat. Over here, you want to be careful as you come around the brown. Of course, we can always go back in and clean it up with brown paint if we need to. But the less we have to do that, the better. Again, I'm just going to come under here and just paint right by the leaves on the bottom. And I'm going to keep going. Okay, down here, it's hard to tell. It doesn't really make that much difference. But on, let me see if I can put something under here. Maybe that'll help. On the bottom of the pumpkin, and it's okay if you do it, if you painted it all orange already and you went right there, because we will go back in and we will make these V's here for this bottom petal of the flower yellow. So that's okay. So if you already painted this stroke here orange, don't worry. If you can leave a little gap and visualize that V here as a flower petal, that's good too. Well, like I said, if you already went in there and painted it, don't fret, it's fine. This is one of my favorite oranges. It's nice and deep. It's not like a really, really bright orange. It's got a bit of a brown base to it. And I like it against the brown and the tan. Okay, now we're going to move on to our green. I have a couple of shades of green, and we're going to do that with the brown and the white. We're going to paint this top leaf section up here a darker green, and we're going to do that by mixing a little bit of brown with our paint. We're going to paint the same bottom leaf section with the dark. And then, I don't know if you can tell, but there's a curly Q here and a curly Q here. And right here in between, by this top of this flower, is what's the stem of the pumpkin. It looks like a tiny little barrel spot in here above this little flower that it almost reminds me of like a spigot on an outside water thing, those old metal ones. So it's this flower here, and this little part in here is going to get a little bit of brown for the stem. And then we're going to do up here 2, 4, 6 leaves in the darker green. Down here 2, 4, 6 leaves in the darker green. This little curly Q on one side of the stem, this little curly Q on the other side of the stem. And then over here are little stems. They look like cherries. I don't know if they are cherries or what, but these little green stems here too. And then these will get light. We'll do the lighter green after. But that's what we're going to start with, the dark green. So, and I'm going to work my way down. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up brown on my brush, because I want brown on my brush anyway. It's going to darken up my green. And I'm going to come in here and I'm going to paint in the stem for the pumpkin. So if you can't see the pumpkin stem, it's pretty much brush width wide. And it's right there. It's in between this flower that almost looks like a daisy, this here that looks like a upside down 6, and then this curly Q here. It looks like a cork or a little barrel, and we're going to paint that brown. And then we're going to go and pick up a little bit more brown and our green. So I just want my green a little bit darker. So I picked up some brown with my brush, and I'm mixing it in here with my green paint. If you don't want to mix yours, you're afraid to mix yours, you can leave all your green the same, and that's fine too. Okay. So I'm going to start up here, painting in these leaf sections with this darker color. I don't mind if I don't over blend my green and my brown. It just gives us some shading and some highlighting. So I've done the top section of the leaves. I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom. I'm going to mix in a little bit more brown to my green, darken it up a little bit, and I'm going to do these leaves down here. I'm being a little bit careful where the leaves touch into the border. And down here, it gets a little confusing again. This 6 leaves on the bottom mirrors this 6 leaves on the top. And these down here, like the ones on the top, they kind of make a V. When we get the rest of our flowers and stuff painted in, it's not going to make that much difference. I just know sometimes you guys really like to know. So up here we have this V. It's a little bit more easy to see and identify. And then down here, because they overlap with the flower, I painted in this line right here. So these bottom leaves have more of a V again. Okay. Then picking up and staying with like more or less the darker color green. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to paint the curlicues. Need more green than that. This one too. Don't let me confuse you because I turned my project upside down. And then these two parts here, I don't know if you could see, they're little. Okay. So while you guys paint, I will go over what we just did. Okay. I started with a little brown on my brush and we painted in this little spot here. It looks like a cork or a barrel. It is about a brush width wide, and that is the top of the pumpkin. So we have our pumpkin here. It's got a few little florals on top, and then that's the stem sticking out the top. I continued with my dirty brush and mixed the brown and the green, and I came up here and I painted these leaves, 2, 4, 6. And then I came down here and I did the same thing on the bottom, 2, 4, 6 with those leaves. Then I came back up here and I did these 2 curlicues that go off the stem on the top of the pumpkin. And these 2 tiny little dashes up here under the H, I guess they're berries. And they have 2 stems, and I painted those green. And now we're going to do all the light green. And the light green is 1, 2, 3, 4 leaves. and then the center section of both of these flowers. So I'm going to take a pencil, maybe that'll help you see them. And I'll show you my first one. So on the top of our pumpkin, we have 3 flowers. This one in the middle that we're painting this deep burgundy, and then these 2 off to the side that I painted blue. If you don't want yours blue, it's totally up to you. You can paint them yellow, you can paint them orange, you can paint them green, you can paint them burgundy, whatever you want to do. If you want to follow me, I painted this one, this deep burgundy, and then I painted these 2 out here blue. But what I wanted to show you is the insides of these, and it's a half circle on the left and a half circle on the right, are green. So what we're going to paint with our green now is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the 4 leaves and the 2 sections. And this time I'm going to use the green, and I'm going to pick up a little bit of white with it just to brighten it up a little bit. So we have the 1 green, we brightened it up with white, and we darkened it up with brown, and then that gives us 2 different greens. But you know me, I'm so flexible. If you guys just wanted to use your 1 green just the way it is, this is a beautiful paint palette. And if you wanted 1 green and that's fine with you, it is fine with me. It is your sign, it is your art, and that is okay. So now we're getting into a little bit more nook and cranny when we do these certain elements. Again, we want to be careful when we come around the edge. I like to do the leaves first, because when we come back with the flower petals, if we go over the leaves a little bit, that's fine, because a lot of times leaves are behind the flowers. So I did those 2 leaves first, and I'm going to do these 2 round sections. I put a little pencil on mine just to show you if it's hard for you to see. I know sometimes it's hard to figure out what these things really are supposed to look like if you haven't seen one completely painted. And then this side. And I'm adding a little bit of white and coming down here. Sometimes I like to just use these little tiny strokes on these little cutouts and these elements. Keeps it a little neater like that. And if it takes a little bit longer, or I have to go back and get paint more often, it's okay. Don't worry if you get paint on another element, and especially if it's still the raw wood, because we're going to paint over that. And if not, we can fix it with the brown or touch it up at the end. It's all good. Okay. So I did these two leaves on the bottom, and these little tiny half circles here that are what are the inside of these flowers on the outside. I think it's easier to now see this one flower here in the middle. That's the burgundy.
Teresa, those are green inside, those little flowers next in the burgundy
Yes,
Those
right
are-
here, these two little half circle things.
are green.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, I'll just recap again. So we did our letters and our border with the dark brown. Then we came in and we did our pumpkin in orange. It's easier to see now. And then we did all the leaves and a few of the other little details with the green. I darkened up my green a little bit for this set of leaves, the bottom set of leaves, the curly cues around the stem, and then these two little stems that are attached to these berries. Oh, and we don't want to forget the stem of our pumpkin in there on brown too. And then I lightened up the green a little bit to do these two leaves, these two leaves on the bottom, and then these flower centers up here by the pumpkin. Okay. I'm gonna give my brush a good wash. I have out some of this pale yellow ochre, and we're going to do these two large flowers in this yellow. Decent amount of paint on my brush. And just get started. Be careful. I am now, it's easier for me. I'm resting my arm on my design, but I know it's dry. So if you need to turn it around so your arm is off to the side, go ahead. Whatever works for you, it's ever easier for you. Again, I don't mind here if I get a little bit on my leaf. We have the leaf being covered up by the flower a little bit, and that's okay. I'm going to come in here to the curly cue and see if I can make it a little straight where they touch. Yep. And again, I don't worry about getting in all the nooks and crannies the way it's cut. If you, I'll just show you guys. Let's have a good angle here. If you're a little bit of a messy painter and you get some paint in here on the edges, I wouldn't worry about doing the edges completely 100%. But if it's messy and it's dripping, just do a little bit of brushwork on the edges like this, so it looks intentional. And you don't have to paint the whole thing. It gives it a little rustic look, and almost as if it was intentional to do all that. But like I said, it's fine. If you didn't mean to and you don't want to get it in there, don't worry about it. Okay, down here, if you can, this is where we had our petals from this one flower cross over our pumpkin. And that's it. It was easy as making this one a V, and then this one I just pulled a little line over there so they're the same height. And I'm just going in and I'm painting the rest of my flower in. When this is hanging somewhere and we have added the highlights that we're going to get to, it's not going to be that big a deal if where your leaf ends and your flowers start is not exact, or it's different, or whatever. The overall look of the design and the colors are really pretty, and that's what matters. When the paint dries quick enough, if you want a second coat of the yellow, that's totally up to you. You can go back up to the top and do a second coat. I like the burgundy flower. I think that between the burgundy flower and the pumpkin, it is the focal point. So that's why I save it for last. So if we want to touch up the blue or whatever, we can do that when we add on our burgundy flower. I didn't love how my flower came down here. So I'm just going back in and covering it up with a little bit of orange. I felt like there was too much yellow on my pumpkin. So now I just narrowed it up a little bit just by coming back in here and painting over my orange, over the yellow a little bit with my orange. And that's it.
Hey, Teresa,
Yes.
this is Janet. All right,
Hello.
my yellow is how you doing? My
Good. How are
yellow
you?
is all dried up just about.
Really?
Mm,
Anyone else?
yeah, I'm sorry?
I was wondering, anyone else? Can you add a little bit of water too with it? Like dip your brush in water and then mix it up.
Yeah, I'll give that a try.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you.
And then add a little bit of white to it.
Oh, okay. All right,
Yeah.
that might move it around a little.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, now I'm going to do these two little flowers here that are blue. Pick up a little bit of my blue paint and come in here. And this one's a little tricky. You want to get around the stems and in and around the pumpkin. Okay. So this is the first blue one. Just kind of like stuck it in there. It's squiggly like a snake, and it comes around here. We're just going to leave it like that until we do the burgundy over it. And then the same thing on this side. It's like a little squiggly. And I'm going to cut it off here because that's going to be the burgundy one. And we're just kind of getting our blue in here between what's going to be our last burgundy flower and our pumpkin. Sometimes I turn the brush and I just use the corner of the brush, just like a little bit in here, like a scrubbing motion like that, to get into areas that are like tight. Little bit of the corner. I did get a little blue on my green. You guys can't really see it. I can. I'm not going to worry about it because we're going to add dots and stuff to the center of those anyway. So let me see if I can get a little closer look for you guys with this. Oh, I need to go. There we go. So maybe this makes a little bit more sense to you now. This one curly, it's almost like a 6. This one here, the stem, and then these two blue flowers with the centers that go off to the side. And I see I missed a little bit of orange up in there. I'm going to fix that. There we go. Okay. Then I'm going to go ahead and do the burgundy flower. Then I'm going to give you guys about 5 or 6 minutes to get caught up. Do as much as you can. I will go over the highlighting. You guys can take a screenshot if you need to. And that will be that. Okay. Oh, I like the center of this burgundy flower to be yellow. So if you haven't gone ahead and painted your burgundy flower yet, do as I say and not as I do, and paint the center of your burgundy flower yellow. Or you can paint it burgundy and highlight it with white, or you could just paint it with white. But I am going to go back over mine with yellow. But I can't do that until my burgundy dries. I saw a big area to paint and I started painting. Okay. Okay. Oh, that's what you me. Yeah. So I'll give you guys about 5 minutes to be all caught up, and then we will do the highlighting. Okay. Okay. So we are going to go in and we're going to add some highlights. Just a few. Just want to highlight a few of the leaves. If it is too hard to do the lettering, you can skip it if you don't trust yourself to not be real heavy-handed and maybe your lines are too thick or whatever. It's not necessary, so you don't really have to do it. But I'm going to show you. Okay. And we want some fresh white. And I'm going to use the brush that we've been using. And I'm just going to pick up a little bit of white on the edge of my brush. I like it to have a nice chisel edge. And I do that. I apply a little bit of pressure to the brush so it has a skinny edge on it. And then I'm just going to pull and make some highlights around just a few of the petals and a few of the leaves. I'm using my brush standing up on the chisel edge, and I'm just pulling it around. I keep going back and fixing the hair on my brush and pulling in a little line just to add a few little highlights to some of the petals, maybe some of the centers. And with the back of my brush, I'm just going to add a few little dots to the centers of the green flower. I mean, the blue flower on the green, and maybe I'll add orange. You can add orange, you can add some brown, just to add a little bit more dots to the center so our center really sticks out. I'm going to pick up a little bit more white, and I'm just going to put in some highlights down the outside of the large pumpkin. I'm not doing the inside ones. I just want a little bit of highlight on the outside ones. And then I'm going to show you the lettering. So like I said, if you think the lettering is going to be too tricky for you and you don't have a steady hand, then you can skip it. Okay. When my paint gets too built up and my hair won't go flat or my fibers won't go flat on my brush, I wipe it off on my paper towel, and then I go back in and start all over with the paint. It's a little hard to do the curly Q with the brush. If you have a liner brush, okay. If not, sometimes you can draw with the back of your brush to add the highlights as well. That's up to you. Let me see, did I put on there a little bit? And then I'm just going to add a few to the burgundy one. And there you have it. So let me pull up my other one. If you want, let me hold it up. If you want to take a screenshot of the highlighting details, you can. And like I said, don't worry if you're not comfortable doing the lettering, you can do it with a paint pen. You can get those at Michael's, or you can skip it. The only trick to a paint pen is blot it off on a paper towel, and your acrylic paint has to be completely 100% dry. So if you're going to use the paint pen, I wouldn't suggest doing it until like 24 hours after. Okay, let me get the bottom part, and I will go over again how this is going to go. It's dry. Okay. Let me turn you guys around one more second. Okay. So I do not suggest putting them together now, because if you have any kind of paint underneath, it's going to get onto your bottom. So you want to keep these apart until they're totally dry. And I'm just going to hover mine too, because mine's not totally dry. So this is what it's going to look like when it's done. You want to add glue to the rim, maybe a couple of dots in the middle so it doesn't move. But if you do the whole rim and maybe a few, maybe 3 or 4 spots, and then carefully put it down, leave it flat to dry. And then either way, you can do that part first or second. You can't do both parts at the same time though, because then you want to put on the hanger. I would suggest tying the string on first, making a loop, tie a knot, and then we're going to glue this on the back of here and leave it to dry flat. You can even do this part first, leave this face down, let it dry, and then glue the top on. Just be careful, like I said, that you have this in the direction that you want, whether that's going this way or going this way, however you want it, you can tell from yours. And then you have this the direction that you want, and you find the top and then put this on the back where the top is. Okay. Thank you. Have a